welcome to Revista de la Liga. This video is going to be about Barcelona and how they celebrate titles. It's going to be who ended up in the sea last night. Which Barça player ended up on Las Ramblas celebrating with the fans and had to be escorted away for his own safety? Who was in provocative mode? Who ended up on bicycles crisscrossing the town late at night? Which players ended up in hospital? For the meantime, before I begin, welcome to new supporters who've paid their subscription to Revista de la Liga. The instructions about how to do it are in this video. Follow the link, go to my bio on Twitter. And for the month of May, the subscription stays discounted to £3.50. It's about 2 bags of crisps and half a glass of lager. I've picked out a handful of socios just to say thank you for their support to Taylor Michael Collard, Andy Buchanan, Mark Grunders, Lee Hinsley, and Michael O'Mahony. So here's the sketch. You know that Barcelona won the title, and you know, I guess, how they did it, winning at Espanyol. Espanyol, well within their rights, I think, copied the way that Barcelona tried to spoil the Inter Milan celebrations back in 2010 when Mourinho's Inter side managed to get a result at Camp Nou that saw them through to the final. And when Mourinho went onto the pitch and the players started to celebrate to the visiting Italian fans, Barca turned on the sprinklers. So can they really complain that Espanyol did that on the pitch last night? Immediately the final whistle went, sprinklers on, Hansi Flick getting furious with players and staff who didn't immediately go down the tunnel like Lamine Yamal did. Put that subject to one side. As soon as that was fixed, the bus took the players to the Ciudad Deportivo, where they train every day. Fans were gathered everywhere, flares and fireworks were being set off, champagne was being sprayed, and Barca's players went into provocative mode. As the plans sang Campeones, Campeones, away, 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 the players up on a balcony leaned over and started singing themselves. And the fans initially couldn't hear it, couldn't join in, so they shushed each other. And then the Barca players were heard to be singing the River, decime que se siente, haber jugado nacional, that song that the Boca Juniors fans and the Argentina fans in the World Cup made famous. The lettering, la partitura, the words had been changed for the Barca fans to be singing about Espanyol getting relegated, hoping that they never appear again. All kinds of really very provocative, nasty stuff about Pericos, decime que se siente. What does it feel like, Pericos, to be second best to us, to be relegated all the time, to be idiots, effectively is what the song is. And about 10 or 12 of the squad are singing it for all they're worth, and the fans join in and it goes absolutely mad. The next little story to share with you is that Marc Casado, one of the Catalans, one of the guys who's come through the academy, is so overcome with the joy of winning the title, and what a season he's had. Okay, injured for the last 4.5 weeks. What a super midfielder he is. He's going to be Spain's pivote after Rodri for many years to come, with Rodri initially too. Anyway, he's so excited. He goes down to Las Ramblas. All of you have heard of Las Ramblas, I think. Most of you have been there. And Las Ramblas was the place where in the olden days you would go, before there was television, you would go to where the printing presses for, I think it was Mundo Deportivo, would turn out the early next day copies of newspapers. So if you didn't know the result, or you didn't know who'd scored, Barcelona had been away in a league deciding match or in a cup final, or even just a big game, you could go to this place called Canaletas, which is where there's a big sort of fountain, a drinking fountain and a little monument, and they can celebrate there because in the old days you used to hang around there, and about 12:30, 1 in the morning, the first hot off the press, pretty rough newspapers would come out, and like those of us who are older can remember the evening editions on a Saturday, the Green Final in Aberdeen, I think it was the Pink in Glasgow. Before there was mass coverage of football on radio and television, you went and got that paper, and it was the holy grail of telling you what just happened in your team's matches. Anyway, Canaletas was full of celebrating fans, and Casado turns up there and he's on the shoulders of a supporter, and he's wearing his special Barça t-shirt with champions on it, and he's giving it Campeones, Campeones, and singing Barça songs, and has to be escorted out of there by two pretty burly looking Barça fans. They look like thugs, I'm sure they weren't, but they have their t-shirts and their scarves up over their heads so you can't see their faces, and they're escorting later on Casado out of there before he gets pulled limb from limb by eager fans who want to touch him, want to get a photo with him. A little bit daft, kind of thing you would do if it was your team, kind of thing I would do if it was the Dandies, most definitely. Who was in the sea, I hear you ask? I hear you ask that because I teased it up at the beginning of the video. Well, do you remember, and the 1992 theme's going to come out a little bit, in 1992, Barcelona won their first ever European Cup. They'd seen Madrid dominate the competition. They really wanted to start their journey. They felt cursed, I think, about not reaching there, or when they did reach there in the 60s, getting beat. Their vice president of the day, Joan Gaspar, promised that if Barca won at Wembley against Sampdoria, do you remember? Johan Cruyff's dream team, he would jump in the Thames and go swimming in the Thames. Not a great idea for the pollution these days. Not back in 1992 such a great idea either, but he did it. And there's famous footage of him stripping down to his boxers, the vice president of Barca, going swimming in the Thames on the night of the win at Wembley. Well, he promised that if they won the title at Espanyol, he'd go and replicate the feat by nipping down to the Mediterranean at Barceloneta, the fishing village part of this city, and go diving in the sea. Well, there were so many fans that went there to watch it that there was a guard of honour for him. He stripped down to a t-shirt and boxers this time and leapt into the Mediterranean. Such was the enthusiasm, the mania, the rabid joy at, I think, not just having won the title, but the way in which they won the title, which is the thing I rabbited on about in the last video, because it's been spectacular and it's been healthy for the game that they play that way. The final one was which players used their swipe cards, their Bising swipe cards. Bising, or Bising as they pronounce it here, is a municipal service whereby if you become a member for buttons per year, you can swipe your card and pick up an electronic bike, and cycle across the city. There are estacios, stations everywhere across Barcelona, but you wouldn't really expect Dani Olmo, Inigo Martinez, Pedri, and Eric Garcia to be members of that system, given that they all nick about in €70,000 cars, luxury cars with tinted windows. But very, very late last night, around 2 a.m, if you happen to be one of those coming back from a club or a fan celebrating the title, you could well have seen Olmo, Eric Garcia, Inigo and Pedri cycling past you, singing away, en route to visit Ferran Torres, who, after the Clásico, his appendix erupted and it was an emergency situation. He needed really vital emergency surgery because the burst appendix can be fatal. That's what happened to him. It means that he's in hospital. It means that he wasn't listed for that game. He couldn't take part in that game, nor the next two, which is Villarreal and Athletic. Nor will he be able to play for Spain in the Nations League, the impending Nations League, where they face France in the semi-final, and then either a third, fourth playoff or a final playoff. But these four decided, not only will we go and visit our pal in hospital, we'll do it on a bike. And that's where I pay off, because these have been the most crazy celebrations for a Barcelona squad since 1992 itself. When they won that triumph at Wembley and they won the league, the double, the famous double that Barcelona had never done before, meant that the squad pledged that they would cycle up to Montserrat, which just means the serrated mountain. It's like a mountain that's like a saw. But Montserrat has an abbey and a monastery up there, and it's regarded as a holy place, an extremely special place for all Catalans who believe. And therefore the squad would cycle up there, and it's about 60 kilometres, and they were going to cycle from the mini stadium next to the Camp Nou all the way up to the religious iconography and the church, up the chapel up on the top of Montserrat. And believe me, that's a climb. Who won? Well, Pep Guardiola decked out in Tour de France gear, cycling on Eddie Merckx, or he was wearing Eddie Merckx kit and an Eddie Merckx bike. Eddie Merckx, the brilliant Belgian rider of the 70s. That cap with a tiny little peak, looking every little bit of Tour de France cyclist. Made it first, but was disqualified because the self-same Joan Gaspar, who swam in the Thames and who swam in the Mediterranean last night, was making the journey because he was older on a moped, and Pep hitched a ride, holding onto the back of the moped on his bike and coasting up the tougher part of the hill. So he was disqualified, and the winner was Albert Chapi Ferrer, my friend and my colleague at La Liga Television, because he had leg and lung power. Anyway, from the madness of 92 to the relative madness of 2025, I hope you've enjoyed these images, these pictures being painted for you verbally because you weren't able to be here, or you've just got a passing interest in any club that's enjoying that jouissance moment. At any rate, I hope you're enjoying Revista de la Liga. It's a real pleasure to communicate with you, to share these stories with you. I really enjoy it, and therefore, just stay tuned.